All the lemons in the winter grow cold in the wintertime, and everything's feeling fine and cool and yellow. And don't it feel good? All the moon and the sunshine, saw that you can blink twice just to say hello in the treetops. Listen, got caught in a rain cloud, getting pretty cold out, and misplaced my jacket full of storm. When the sun hits, lights up your eyelids. Dark days coming, but think that I could hack such a try. Morning all green and blue. She said I could feel God in the soles of my shoes.
Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. We talk with musicians about music making and the creative process. Our guest today is Brooklyn-based trio Damn Tall Buildings. This was a fun episode because I was able to record it live in person at the Folk Alliance conference in Kansas City last month. Late last year, we had Damn Tall Buildings perform an excellent show right here at Tell You What Studios, and they agreed to sit for this interview when we met up again amidst the mayhem that is the Folk Alliance conference. I had a great time at the conference. Folk and roots artists from all over the world were gathered there, playing sets till all hours in hotel rooms. Among the highlights for me were a folk metal band from Norway called Gangar. Imagine a fiddler playing traditional Norwegian folk tunes, backed by headbanging electric guitar, bass, and drums. Also a fellow by the name of Stash Weislouch, an amazing guitarist who plays, quote, deconstructed bluegrass. You kind of have to see it. You can find him on the YouTube. I also got to see Buffalo Rose perform a song live with folk legend Tom Paxton. The first time they have been able to perform together. They'd been working together remotely for several years, so great to see them finally do so in person. It was a great moment. I also caught some acts I hope to have on the podcast this year. Among them, Joby Riccio, a great singer-songwriter with a new record on the way from Yeprock, and Humbird from right up the Midwest Road in Minnesota. She put on just a riveting show, had me hypnotized. To hear more of what I like about music, or what I think you might like, be sure to subscribe to the Hey How's It Going newsletter. It comes out monthly, it's free, and worth every penny. Chock full of good vibes and bad grammar. Subscribe at the Tell You What podcast website, or drop me an email at tellyouwhatpodcast@gmail.com. Anyway, our guests today, Damn Tall Buildings, Sasha Dubik, Max Capistran, and Avery Bellata, who was sometimes referred to as Montana in our discussion, are just awesome people and extremely talented musicians. They've been playing together for years after meeting up as students at Berklee College of Music. They had an excellent record out last year called Sleeping Dogs. I find myself going back to it all the time. We had some laughs in this one, but also the band offered great insights into their creative process, how they found their way to roots music and to each other, how they worked together creating songs, and how that has changed over time, Max's interesting lyrical approach, and lots more. You should also catch one of their live shows. You will not be disappointed. In the meantime, please enjoy this Tell You What discussion with Avery, Sasha, and Max, Damn Tall Buildings. Damn Tall Buildings, Avery, Max, Sasha, welcome to Tell You What, the podcast.
Thank you. Woo. It is good to be here.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. We've been working on this for a little while, but I'm glad we waited till we are in this special place to Tell You What Satellite Studios, Kansas City, Missouri. Let's set the scene a little bit. I saw the three of you wandering the halls of this hotel last night, carrying your instruments around, surrounded by interesting people. We are here at the Folk Alliance International Conference. Right?
Yep.
Yes.
That's right.
Can you guys tell us about what this thing means to you, what you think of it, what's happening here?
It's great. It's a mixed bag of getting to see a bunch of friends.
Right.
Like it's like a big reunion in a lot of ways. And then playing at ridiculous hours of the night.
In hotel rooms.
In hotel rooms, yeah.
It's kind of...
It's like the musician's equivalent to an Iron Man. in a way, you know, all day you're talking to people, and then like just everywhere you go you run into people in the elevator, the hallway, you're talking, and then you're like playing till late at night and talking till late at night and waking up. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is interesting. People that don't really think about the life of a touring musician when you come to something like this and you see the other musicians, this isn't a regular thing. You don't get a chance really to interact with some of these people who are your friends very often, right?
Yeah, it's weird because you see people all around the country, like sporadically, like we'll see some of these bands once or twice here or there, but never do we see like all of the bands all at once in one spot. So that's cool.
It's described to me as kind of summer camp for musicians.
It is the real band camp.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get down to business. I want to talk a little bit about your musical backgrounds. I know that you all met up at Berklee College of Music, but maybe you can each talk about how you found your way to the kind of music you play now. Specific question like, was roots or bluegrass styles always where you were musically headed? And maybe you can each take a crack at telling us how you got to playing this kind of music. Avery?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I started playing the fiddle when I was 9 years old, and roots music wasn't necessarily in my vision as what I was wanting to do, but the fiddle definitely was a part of my life, whether I knew it or not. So like, I started playing the fiddle when my mom took my brother and I to a used instrument swap at the local high school, and I saw this fiddle and I put my hand on it and I was like, this is my fiddle. This is the one.
Yeah.
And that set off a long chain reaction of kind of like, this is in my gut, I wonder what it means kind of feelings. And so my brother picked up the fiddle at 3 at the same time, so we got to learn together, which was really special. We would work together on just like playing duets and like learning tunes and stuff. All the while I was learning how to read music and follow the more classical, like orchestral
Violin,
right. Definitely. Very clean.
Yeah.
Clean fiddle.
Very clean fiddle. Yeah. And then I started writing music, started composing when I was 14, and
this would have been
ballet, right?
Ballet, yeah. I would write a lot for like orchestra stuff.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so between like 14 and 17, I wrote one piece that was performed with a ballet, and another that my high school orchestra performed, and one more that was actually a little bit closer to like a jazz fusion rock thing with no words, but you know,
it's fascinating.
It was cool, yeah, and that's continued to be a passion of mine. That's what brought me to Boston.
Right.
I started going to college in Montana State University for music technology, and because I was pretty convinced I wanted to write for film, like film music. I learned a lot on the technology side and fell in love with recording and production. And yeah, my last year at MSU, I put down the fiddle. I just was like, I don't want to play anymore. I would rather write.
Okay.
So I focused on composing for a year, and then another one of those like gut feelings. I'm like, I should probably pursue this. My aunt was dating the brother of the head of the songwriting department at Berklee at the time, and that's what inspired me to apply.
It's interesting.
I don't know if anything else would have done it.
Sounds like it was definitely meant to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Destiny.
Absolutely. So that was funny. And yeah, I sent in like a little demo to Pat
Pattison.
Yeah, Pat Pattison. Yeah. Yeah. And so I ended up making the trek out to Boston and got in, and then once you get in, of course, you need to start playing again.
Yeah, right. You got to pick up the fiddle.
And exactly.
I'm going to cut you off because I want to get back to the academic experience after we hear from the three of you, because I think that's an interesting thing to talk about.
Totally.
Who would like to talk next about their background? Sasha, you're next in the line.
I can go next.
Yes.
So I started out singing at probably 8, I want to say.
Okay.
My dad had a klezmer band, which is European Jewish folk music of some kind. And so I was singing with him for a while, and I got into musical theater, middle school, high school, and I thought I was good at it, and I was like, well, I guess this is what I should do with my life. I should go to Broadway. And so I went to Berklee College, which is in Pennsylvania, for a year, and I decided theater was not meant for me. The theater route was not.
What do you think it was that made you think that?
I was getting more into music, and I was like, I love singing, and I don't love acting.
Yeah.
And I always felt that way, but I was good at the singing part of it, so I always got good parts, and you know, I just naturally fell into that world. The
musical half of musical theater. Yeah.
Yeah, but I love to dance, and I always took dance classes, but I really didn't like acting. So I went to, actually I was home back in Philly for my voice teacher's recital of all her students, and she had a bunch of students that got into Berklee that year. And I never heard of Berklee before, and they were talking about it, and they were all excited, and I was like, oh, what is this? And I was actually a psychology and theater major at Muhlenberg, so I was interested in working with like kids and the therapy sides of things. So I studied music therapy at Berklee.
Okay. When did you pick up the bass?
At Berklee.
Oh, interesting.
I was like strictly a vocalist.
Yeah.
For my whole life, with some piano.
How did you get talked into playing roots or bluegrass kind of style of music?
Okay, so I'm from Philly. I grew up with like Motown, jazz, gospel, funk. That's my, like, I do not have any roots music in my growing up experience, besides maybe klezmer, I guess.
Yeah, it's like minor bluegrass.
I guess you know, like as a kid, I'm like, oh, I'm singing in my dad's band. This is so not cool.
You're still saying that.
And then I met these guys at school, and that's, Max became my best friend, and he was like, you gotta play bass. I want to start a band, and you should play bass in it. And I was like, you're crazy.
Interesting.
I just sing.
I have a technical question, and this is something that I find interesting that I've learned recently, that evidently is very hard to play the bass and sing at the same time.
It took me,
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Okay. So we got this gig. We started a band. We're in college. We're kids. And we got this gig in Salem, Massachusetts, about like 45 minutes on the train outside of Boston. And I think we did it for 3 or 4 years. It became like our weekly Thursday night. This is what Damn Tall Buildings did. Okay. It's sort of like how we grew up as a band. And that's where I learned how to play the bass. So I had this standing 3-hour gig every week, and I had rented the bass. And like 3 days later had my first gig. So like I definitely could not play the bass at all.
We're talking about a big acoustic bass here.
Big acoustic, upright bass.
The harder version.
Big strings. I had a student rental bass. Never played a string instrument before in my life. And Max was like, you'll be fine. You got rhythm. You'll figure it out.
I was right.
I'd have to agree with him.
And I didn't sing for a while.
Okay.
Which was like weird, because I was like, I'm
this
now in this band, like doing this thing that like I'm not good at. I don't even know where the notes are that I'm playing. I don't know what notes I'm playing. My fingers hurt. But then I did it for a while, and like I fell in love being in the band and performing in that way, and now I play the bass. No, I guess I'm trying to think of what song it was, because I remember like there was one song where I was like, I think I can sing now. Like, I think there's one. Like, I think I can try to do it at the same time. Yeah. But it did take a full year and a half, I want to say.
To be able to do them at the same time.
Before even just like background vocals, some like oohs and ahs to add on. It was just really, rubbing your belly, tapping your head type of thing.
Well,
playing syncopated rhythms with your fingers and then singing on the beat with your voice. And
right, 2 different beats.
Yeah, it's a confusing thing.
Yeah.
For your body to figure
you've got
out.
it down now, I'll say. But yeah, it's, I think it would surprise a lot of people to realize how hard that is. Like drumming too, I guess.
Yeah.
And singing, right?
Yeah.
All right, Max.
Hi, I'm Max.
Yes.
How did I get into roots music? I guess that's what we play.
Well, you can change that definition in any way you want.
No. Montana said roots music, and I think that's a good qualifier of what we do. I grew up listening to blues music. My dad was like a rock and roll blues guy. So I
fan, but not a musician.
Not a musician, just a fan. Like he was a wild partier that cleaned up his act, but he kept that rock and roll spirit. So we had the vinyl player in our living room, and so I grew up listening to his vinyls, which was really cool. I also listened to terrible music as well. I'm not that cool, but I did get a good dose of good blues and classic rock. So that influenced me at the beginning, but I realized the other day we were on a really long drive So I was like looking through, listening to old music, and like my number 3 influences growing up were Modest Mouse, Bob Dylan, and Bob Marley, which is like quite a spread.
Yeah.
But when I look at our music now and what we play and like roots music in general, like it embodies a lot of the characteristics of those like 3 genres.
Yeah.
Or 3 bands, I guess. I don't know if I call them genres. But yeah, I feel like this type of music, roots music, we see it influence so much of all of the music that we listen to. So for anyone to fall into it, I feel like it can be like a natural thing. And for me, it certainly was like very natural to fall in love with, like, I went to Berklee, met these guys. I wanted to play in a blues band. I had like my electric guitar and an amplifier.
So when you picked up the guitar at what age, would you say?
I don't even know, like 9 or something. I wanted to play drums. I was honestly pissed that I was playing guitar, but my parents were like, you have to play guitar first.
But blues guitar was your first love.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to play blues. Like, I grew up playing like blues gigs throughout high school at a place called the Pasta Loft. We played there too.
We've all played there.
Yeah, we've all played at the Loft.
New Hampshire.
But yeah, I wanted to play blues guitar, but like I lived in a studio apartment when I moved to Boston. I couldn't jam there, and I didn't want to lug my stuff on the train. And I met Montana, and we started playing music on the street. And we met this guy, Paul Scroy, he grew up in Pennsylvania and plays country music and like sort of bluegrass, but old real country, Hank Williams and stuff.
Yeah.
So we started playing with him on the street, and it kind of just slowly gravitated towards like bluegrass. Michael Daves and Chris Thiele put out their record that year.
That was an influence.
Heavy.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so now we're at Berklee. I want to talk about the academic experience of music, if we can. Because not every bluegrass or roots musician or band has a degree from Berklee, right? We've had some of your Berklee associates on the podcast, the Lula Wiles folks, Western Den, right? We've talked about this. You're all obviously highly technically skilled at your various instruments. I'm guessing the school helped with that, but I find it interesting maybe to talk about how your creative selves were guided in the academic environment at Berklee, maybe specifically songwriting.
I went to school for songwriting there. Not at first, but I found myself in that department. And that's what I ended up leaving with. And it's an interesting situation, learning how to write songs like in a classroom. Because it is such a like emotional and personal thing for so many people. Like, you know, people grow up writing songs in their bedroom and you sing them to yourself. And like, if you start singing them to your friends and your family and other people, like that's a big deal, you know. And like going into college, everyone's young. Most people aren't, you know, playing these songs out for people all the time. So then to go into a classroom and have to learn how to like turn that thing that was so personal and vulnerable into, you know, something that's now like, oh, you come in and you present this, what I told you, like this structured song that I told you to build. And it's like, okay, well, how do I switch from being, you know, this being a personal thing to this being such a mechanical thing?
Right.
And I think that was like one of the weirdest things about going to school for songwriting. So you almost had to like, I had to separate which songs I wrote for me personally and for the band, you know, and what I wrote for school. They were 2 separate things for me. And I don't know if that was for everybody, but like I went in.
So you had like separate notebooks.
Separate notebooks, yeah. I'd go in and like exercise. Like I had for songwriting, you know, class, they tell you like you have to write a song that has a refrain. And so like I would write like a whole song, but it was so like you have to do it once a week. You know, how I write songs is very different than that. But this taught me so many things about like, one, songwriting practices and like techniques you can use to keep creativity flowing. Like, because writer's block can be a permanent thing if you don't do things to unblock it, you know? So one, like the techniques that you learn in school to get through stuff like that, as well as like, I just had no idea how like the human ear takes in music and sound and like how rhythm and pitch and all that sort of stuff really like can affect the human experience, and to learn, you know, exactly what's happening in a pop song that makes people really stoked. We spend a lot of time learning about pop music.
What's a hook?
What's a hook, yeah. And a motif and all this sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And like we don't play pop music now, but I definitely use those techniques that I learned in the school now when I write personally, and it's still now an emotional thing, but I have that background.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, I don't know, like training to be, I love to surf, but to be like a professional, crazy, big wave surfer, like you have to do insane training in the gym and on the street and eat healthy, like all of these things that don't actually seem to be like 100% what you're doing. But when you're in the water, you remember all that stuff, you know?
Yeah. Do you think any of the questions from your school notebook leaked over into the other notebook and became a song you would perform?
As I was just talking about this, I was wondering, and I don't think so.
Someday in the Tall Damn Building's archive, someone is going to get that notebook and there'll be like a production.
Yeah.
The academic.
Yes.
Writing.
Max's academic songs.
Strand papers.
Yeah. I was at a songwriting seminar or talk yesterday here, and the person was talking about some famous artist, Matisse or something, and it was like, they did these big paintings, but the one you saw was the 15th version. They had 14 others in the garage that you never were put up. But now it's interesting to look at those 14 and see what the structures were that produced the final one. So this is where we might get with you.
Hey, I hope so.
When you're dead, and I'm still around, I'm going to go get that notebook and...
I hope you sell it for a lot of money.
Wing at the Songwriting Museum where we'll talk about that.
Wow, it would be an honor.
Yeah. Avery, you studied songwriting at Berklee as well. Can you add anything to what you maybe learned from a technical standpoint or something else that influenced your creative path?
Sure. I studied songwriting through Max's studying of songwriting.
Okay.
So, because I was in the film scoring department. Okay. And so I'd say that I definitely learned that I am a songwriter within that context, which was inspiring because like for a long time I definitely thought I wasn't. Like I'll write down the score, that's fine, like let me do the copy work all day, but I'll sing your songs, but I'm still learning. Like I said, I learn a lot of fun like techniques and stuff like that, like when Max was talking about like, oh, you got to write a song with a refrain. That's like all I do right now. So
we just talked about that the other day.
Yeah, exactly. So
songs with refrains.
With refrain, yeah. So I'm a big fan of the verse refrain model. You toss in a bridge, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
And so far it works, which is why co-writing is really amazing. I think that's something that, especially in the last year or 2, 3, that we've been working together, writing stuff and working on stuff together. It's great because like sometimes like all you can come up with is the verse,
right?
And then.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a chorus like 6 years ago, and I've been trying to find something to put it to. And Sasha wrote a verse like a year ago, and we were like, "Oh, that's great! We love these verses that you wrote. We need something."
Just like couldn't figure out where to go with it and what to do, and was like, "This is cool. We like this." But we have nothing. We have nothing to do. Like we don't know. Like so, it just got put in this like bucket of like, well, we'll do something with that one day.
The spare parts bin.
Yeah. And then we put them together, and sometimes you get like a mutant vehicle, and it works out. You know?
I wasn't home, and I got like a little voice memo to our Damn Tall Buildings text message, like group chat, and it was Max like in the living room, like singing my verses with his like old chorus that he couldn't put together, and he was like, how does this sound? Like, does this work together? Like, did we just figure this out?
And that's the funny thing too, is learning what makes you feel something. A lot of it is like when you're talking about the versions of stuff, it's like a lot of that comes down to feeling that in your gut, where it's like, okay, this makes me feel something, so that can stay. And then this makes me feel absolutely nothing. Yeah. So that needs to be replaced. But with what? So like,
going through iterations of something until you start to feel
something.
The truth.
The truth. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about your process as a group. We talked about this a bit before the microphone was turned on, about Max, maybe you being primary generator of song ideas, and how does that work in the group context, and maybe also talk about how that may have changed over time. You guys have been at this for a while.
It is changing. It's changing right now. I our first couple albums, I wrote all the material, but as we have grown as a band and everyone has grown individually, like everyone is starting to write more songs and feel comfortable writing more songs and bringing them to the band. And that just like brings back real quick to the college conversation, was like learning how to take intense criticism on your songs, like to bring in a song and have everyone in the room is supposed to be like, this is what's wrong with what you wrote, you know? To feel okay to be vulnerable enough to share something personal like that and be able to be strong enough to take the critique takes a long time. So like I've always loved these guys. Like I always bring these songs in and they're always honest with me and I love it. But you know, I think it's taken a while for everyone to feel the same sort of like comfortableness, because like I had to do it in school, you know. But now, you know,
you're also really good at just like you spit out material like that's a whole different topic. Like, he's just constantly sent. We get voice memos all the time, like Mountain Bout, and just like 6 songs pop up. It's like, listen to this chorus. Is this good? Like, do you like it? Should we do something with it?
Practice.
So if you say no to 5, there's still 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, they've been both writing songs to bring them to the group. So you know, 2 records ago, Avery wrote a beautiful song, Location. That wasn't even supposed to be a Damn Tall Building song. He sent me, it was on like another one of his personal EPs. And I was like, dude, you bring this song to the band. What are you doing?
I would interrupt because I think my daughter Lucy told me she heard you sing that song last night.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She mentioned what a great, lovely song it was,
thanks.
in fact.
It is a great, lovely song.
Beautiful song.
I love playing that song.
I remember when I first listened to it.
Yeah.
To be honest, I was on the toilet. I remember, and I was like, this is beautiful, man.
But there are times where you bring a song to the group and Sasha might sing it, or the people are bringing their instrumental input to the song.
100%.
As it comes together.
Yeah, especially in the instrumental way. Like, we definitely build, like, I don't write instrumental parts for the most part. Like, I'll come in with just, you know, some lyrics, the melody, and, you know, the harmony, like the guitar part.
Yeah.
And then we'll really build that up together. As far as Sasha singing, this has been definitely more of a prominent thing that we're thinking of these days, where, like, when I'm writing songs sometimes with her voice in mind.
That's one of my questions, so I want to hear.
I'm trying. It's hard though. She sings much better than me.
Well, I wanted to let me frame the question. I hesitate to use this phrase, secret weapon, but Sasha has this amazing, powerful
100%.
voice,
Not
right?
so secret.
It's not a secret.
No, but the secret weapon is definitely that is what it is. Yeah.
Yes. But here you are writing lyrics, and now I want you to talk about writing for another person's voice, not just. Well, both the sound and the way they sing, but also
lyrical.
They'll be the one presenting these lyrics.
Yeah, you know, it's changed over time. Like I said, like I think our first couple albums, like Sasha's not singing a ton on it. It's because I didn't know how to do that, and she also couldn't sing and play the bass at the same time. but now it's still weird. But you know, it's funny. I feel like I start writing songs like there's a practice of songwriting. You know, it takes practice like any instrument, which is something that I didn't realize and which a lot of people don't realize. Like, everyone says it takes 10,000 hours to master your instrument. Like, it takes 10,000 hours to be able to write a good song. Like, you gotta write so many bad songs, you know? And so I've written so many bad songs. But now I feel like I'm in a practice where I just try to, like, pump out material all the time, as much as I can, just even if it's bad, you know? And I feel like for Sasha's voice, like, I'll be writing a song and sometimes the lyrics just like line up. I can see it coming out of her mouth, you know?
So you don't sit down and say, I'm going to write a song in Sasha's voice. It's sometimes some of what comes out.
Occasionally I feel like you have, you're like, I'm trying. Like, he's like, I'm
but that
trying
never
so
works
hard.
out.
But like, lyrically, I want to say like, you're very like, Bob Dylan-y meets Modest Mouth, very wordy, lots of words.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. I think I have something wrong with my mouth. I have a lot of jaw tension, and so I have a lot of trouble fitting like lots of little words and enunciating.
It's hard.
Yeah, but a lot of the stuff that he writes that like sounds cool when he sings it, and he thinks he's like bringing it. He's like, you should try this. You should try singing this, and I'll try to sing what he just wrote, and it sounds really cool when he does it, and then I go to do it, and it's like, what happened? That's no.
I realize I can't intentionally, at least at first, be like, I'm writing this song for Sasha, because like yeah,
I feel like melodies change, like when we end up putting it together. It's like, now let's add a little more like
movement,
height and depth to.
This goes back to my
melody.
Punk rock influences.
Heck
just
yeah.
one note melody
around this.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear you talk about this kind of struggle to get yourself in that mode.
Oh, it's 100% a struggle.
Yeah, it's been a struggle.
Yeah. But I think we're getting better at it. Yeah, it's like practice and growing, just like with anything else. But yeah, the hardest part is like her voice. She has the ability to hit all sorts of melodies and notes like that are all over the place. Where like for me to sing a melody that's kind of all over the place, I just don't have the chops yet.
Woke up foggy, window panes, sitting still staring at the pouring rain. All feels different, but it looks the same. Got up early and I'm tired again. Don't sit better with a proper view. Hot tar burning up the avenue. Long gone before I even knew. Can't remember what I said to you, but it all keeps coming round. All the daffodils are rose petals, sunshine slipping in on the patio at your mother's house.
Sasha started to hit on this a little bit, and I want to get into it. Your lyrical style is somewhat unique, right? Aside from the content, which we'll get to when we talk about some of the songs, I'm going to use some technical terminology here. I hope everyone can keep up. You use a lot of words. You agree with that?
I follow.
It's not quite stream of consciousness. A lot gets said, but also it's pretty like direct, right? It seems like you're often directly addressing your audience head on, right? Rather than just offering observations out into the void. It seems like you are addressing the listener or challenging the listener in some way.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Maybe you can talk about that style.
Yeah, I think that goes back to like the influences I had, like my 3 obsessions. Like I just listened to so much Modest Mouse, Bob Dylan, and Bob Marley. Like I was ripping music off the internet, so I grabbed all 3 of their discographies and I listened to each one of their full discographies, which is so much time. Like it took a month.
Bob Dylan would take the rest of my life to listen to.
It took a month, and I only listened to Bob Dylan. That was it. I didn't listen to anyone else. I listened to Bob Dylan for a full month, Bob Marley for a full month. Modest Mouse not as long, but listen to them all. But the influences that all of them have, like first of all, Bob Dylan, like I'm a big reader, and I love the Beat Generation, and Bob Dylan was right in there with Stream of Consciousness. So like I get that inspiration from him, I think, in those one-note melodies. But the talking directly to your audience and challenging your audience and challenging your listener, that's like 100% from Modest Mouse.
Okay.
Not 100%, but that's a huge influence. Their music and their lyrics specifically, especially growing up, challenge you to think about. One of the big things that I struggle with, and every songwriter struggles with, is everyone wants to just write about love. Everything is a love song. Whereas Modest Mouse, like those guys don't really write love songs for the most part. And if they do, there's some mutilated love song. Like weird. But they write about like questioning life and those sorts of things. So I like to try to like follow that path and challenge us all to think about like what we're doing here, who we are, and why are we all in this room together?
Since I've known Max in college, I'm like new to the songwriting lyrical world of things. And you always said from the beginning, we're like, why write a love song? Like everybody writes love songs. I'm so tired of hearing love songs. And then you also told me something I remember, don't say the word I.
Yes.
Why are you talking about yourself?
That's it. I've heard that before, and it's a very interesting technique.
I love a lot of songs that use I, and I love a lot of love songs. I'm not a hater, but I've noticed that when I like write songs and say I, I feel like I'm begging everyone to just listen to me and my plight, and like these songs I don't want these songs to be about me. Like they come from me and my experiences, of course. But like Sasha's always like, what is this song about that you're writing? It's like, I don't know. Like the meaning does come throughout the process, That's why I go back to that thing I mentioned earlier. Like it's a block of marble that you're just carving down to find what was intentionally there. Like I do feel like for my songwriting, like I never sit down and I'm like, I'm going to write a non-love song where I don't use the word I. Like,
just what happens.
Yeah, it's just what happens.
It's also kind of a show versus tell thing too,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Not saying I think this.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about live performance for a minute. I have seen you all perform live, including an excellent show at the Tell You What Studios recently.
They're nice
awesome.
studios. We recommend it.
Really good.
And I saw you perform in a hotel room last night. And I've seen you perform in the woods. So I've seen three different
Three pillars.
Woods, my living room, and a hotel room.
Triangle of live performance.
But you are known for, and I can verify this, putting on compelling, entertaining live shows, and it seems like you're having a grand time up there on stage. I was first recommended to your music by my musician daughter, Lucy, whom you have crossed paths with. I've looked up some old notes from her, and she said, quote, "I think they just rock. Also, they are fun kids."
Perfect.
That's a pretty good summation. So can you talk about what you think is important to a live show, what you are trying to bring to your audience?
First thing that popped in my mind was like, we want everybody to have a good time. Like, we're up here putting on a show, which, like, obviously we're here to perform, but like, we have to be up here on the stage or in the woods for, an hour or two in front of you. Like, we want to have a good time.
Yeah.
So we want you to be experiencing that with us, and hopefully that's like a joyous, happy time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's moments of like, like where we take down for a moment, where it's not all like foot stomping party time music.
Yeah, to give people everything too. Yeah, like not just to give them that one frequency of like, this is all a great time. A lot of our music is not about life is a great time.
Right.
A lot of the music we're writing is a little introspective. It can be a little, bumpy, but I think to have like just this experience with everyone where we feel like we've shared something in this one room together. We talk about that a lot at the end of the shows, and like we talk about how grateful we are for that, and we are so grateful. We don't take it for granted that all of these people come out to see us play music, and that we get to play with them, and that we get their attention for an hour to 2 hours or whatever. With that, we want everyone to feel like this was worth their time and that we've all gained something from this experience. I think that's our number one goal with our live performance, and that's what drives like the energy, the excitement, and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to brag very often, but Bruce Molsky yesterday said that he saw us play and he left the show and couldn't help but have a smile on his face. That's our goal 100% of the time.
He's someone that I would take that compliment from.
Yeah, for sure. I'm making a t-shirt that says
yes. Avery, anything to add?
I'd say that we have learned over the last decade about like what it takes to hold space. I think that's a big thing. Like we're up there. We're like the beacon of light that anchors a moment in time on that stage, and then everyone who's there, we're all human beings hanging out in this one spot. And like, Max is talking about like keeping the flow of it, engaging and everything, and like really connecting each other to the moment itself. And then I think a lot of our gratitude comes from that exchange. It becomes this like back and forth. It's not just like let's, you shout out, I'll shout out these lyrics and you shout them back at me kind of a thing. It's like, let's sing together.
Yes.
Let's figure this out where we're like sharing this moment together. And then, because that's impactful. That's, I think, again, a lot of our gratitude has been learned from the impact of really true moments that we've all shared together on stage together and on stage with audiences and everything. And it just keeps getting better.
That's great.
So, yeah.
Let's talk about a couple of songs specifically. We're going to dive right in. I'm going to talk about the song Podcast.
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
Now, sometimes in these interviews, when I find particular lyrics that are striking or worth discussing, I'll read them back to my guests, and that can start a conversation. In this case, I think it would be helpful for you, Sasha, to perhaps recite the opening lines of this song for us. I really think it'll further discussion. So can you do that for us?
Yes, I will recite them.
Yes.
The first verse starts with, sleeping on the ground, thinking you're so profound.
Keep going.
Your podcast sucks, and I think I hate you.
What? Sasha?
She told me she wrote that about you, man.
Sasha? I thought we were friends.
It's nothing personal.
Okay. I've been waiting for that moment since you guys agreed to this interview, so I had to get through that.
That's awesome.
You can't ask
I
her
didn't
too
think
many
about
questions.
that when I wrote this, like
This
the
is
interviews afterwards.
This is I love this song. Let me just say that.
Thank you.
It's about, I think, the end of the world, but also maybe an indictment of the entertainment industry in part, of which you are a part, right? Mm-hmm. So can you talk about the aspects of this song?
I think this came from a summer when we were collectively, like, we're spending a lot of time in the van together, and we were just, hashing out our, like, certain frustrations with the industry that we find ourselves in, which, I'm sure every business, whether it's teaching or business, I don't know, finance, like, you got your things that you're a little frustrated with.
Yeah.
But not every business has the outlet where you can just write a song about how much.
That's very true.
Yeah.
It hits different than an email.
Yeah.
Group email to everyone in my industry.
Yeah.
You all suck.
I'm trying to think, like, the second verse talks about, like, Instagram, and, like, I think this was coming off of, like, obviously it's about the end of the world partially. It's coming off post-pandemic life.
Okay.
And this was coming from a time when, like, everybody was on Instagram and social media. Everyone was hopping onto these bandwagons and reposting and resharing the same thing over and over again. And, like, I feel like a lot of people experience this. Social media was just, like, I'm trying to think of
bullshit.
An echo chamber.
But yeah,
an echo chamber of, like, the same stuff just being, like, tossed around from person to person. And it was like, is that what you really think? Or you're just posting that because, like, 10 other friends just posted it, and so now you think you have to as well. Like, do you really, what are you doing for that community of people that you just posted about? And so I think we were collectively a little frustrated by that experience.
All of this emotion is tied up in a really catchy song, upbeat, catchy tune, right? So that's kind of interesting in terms of the package of the song.
I would say a lot of our songs that have, like, kind of darker tones to them are pretty upbeat and like
Modest Mouse.
Yeah.
Modest Mouse. That
sure.
comedic, I mean, as a band, we love to get people laughing at our shows.
Yeah.
And we want you laughing at our music. Like, I love songs that are both, like, sad, introspective, intense, but also comedic. Like, all of us love comedy, love dark comedy. We love it. We love going to see stand-up comedians that, So I think that's sort of like let's take this horrible life event that happened to me and turn it into something funny that we can all laugh about, and, like, it still sucks, but we can feel better. Like, that's, I think, our goal as a band. Yeah. And for podcasts, I mean, I think to sum up, like, people have a lot to say, and
which ties into, like, some of the podcast thing, the social media podcasts. It was like,
they were all popping up everywhere.
Yeah, everything was just popping up.
I can say this. Does everyone really need to have a podcast? Probably.
No, but I like this one. I do. I like this one. I do.
That was, like, sort of the intent with that lyric. Does everyone need a podcast?
The answer is no.
Yeah.
But I do endorse this one.
But the good ones. You asked really great questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tell your friends. Sing a song about it.
Heck yeah.
Podcast.
Speaking of friends, you just had Willie Carlisle on here, and love that.
That's
right. We saw Willie for the first time at Folk Alliance in Montreal. This is 3-4 years ago.
He's one of those people. I talked to him on the internet for an hour, and I feel like he's my best friend.
Yeah,
He's just a sweetheart.
He is your best friend.
Yeah.
He genuinely, he's one of the most genuine human beings. Like,
if anyone is listening to this and hasn't listened to that episode, I recommend it.
Yes,
definitely.
He's got a lot to say. But
Check out his music.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Sleeping on the ground, thinking you're so profound. Your podcast sucks and I think I hate you. visions in my head. You may think I'm dead. Sour limes and I'm the bitter. Oh, sky's coming down, you better split quick. Oh, you're gonna be where the good times hit. Oh, bad days gone, got your life to live. I woke up early, I'm tired of it.
Avery, let's talk about the song My Baby.
Sure.
Which you wrote, I believe. This is a beautiful love song, very pretty sentiments. I'm struck by the vocal performance here in particular. You sing this with Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
To me, kind of the hook of the song, aside from the lovely banjo riff, is the way you kind of hold the notes when you sing this, right? Sometimes really extending them. It's cool. But how and when in the creative process was this kind of decision made in terms of the way this song is presented vocally?
That's very
That's a good question.
on brand for you.
Yeah.
To have long, big breasts.
That's very true.
Do you want to tell them about your warm up in the shower? That
Yes.
you sometimes do
Definitely want to hear
in
that.
the mornings when you shower.
Sure. Yeah.
It's related. It's related.
I do like to warm up in the shower.
Vocally.
Yes. I
Long,
do.
like,
I
2
do
minute
take a
holds.
deep breath, and I like to hold a pitch, usually in an ohm of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the shower, I think about taking the pitch from my gut all the way into like above the crown.
Yes.
You know? So that can take 45 seconds sometimes.
The one note.
For one note, yeah.
From the beds.
You know.
So this finds its way into your song.
A lot of it,
creating.
yes.
Yeah.
It's very, and I've always loved like drone music. You
Mhm.
know, I'm a big fan of like classical world and stuff like that. Like I'm a big fan of held notes and like changing harmony within one thing that's holding strong, and then everything else is kind of just there. And yeah, so I'd say that definitely has an influence on the phrasing and everything. Yeah, and I was like playing the banjo every single morning, sitting on my couch, just like playing the banjo. And that line came, I forget when and how, but it was just like, it just started grooving, you know.
Banjo line.
You know, so it has this kind of like swingy thing to it. And then it just felt right to kind of like have the vocal be a little sweeter, you know, and a little bit like, it doesn't have to hold on to the swing. The swing is there. And then you can just kind of breathe and say what you feel.
That juxtaposition of like the movement of the banjo versus the steadiness of your vocal, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with Sasha singing on it, it's like, that's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
I think that's like, and then with the ooze and everything, that's, yeah.
This guy's the master of breath. You know, he's all about breathing.
I struggled for a long time when we first started
To hold the notes.
I can't hold my breath as long as him, and he would hold this note at the end of every verse for so long. I'm like, dude, like I can't keep up with you. Like you gotta work with me.
And I would like to point out, it's a love song.
It is a love song.
Yeah.
It is a love song.
One in.
Got ourselves a
That
love
was
song.
that was another one. He sent just a voice memo of it, like not intentionally made for Damn Tall Buildings. It was just like
It's like, I know
that,
what this
and
is.
I was like, dude, I mean,
Let's go.
come on.
Oh, my baby's much more than a pretty face. Got teeth behind the smile, a heart that fits right on the sleeve, and a love that stretches miles, and eyes so far from lying that they stand straight up and down and up to the heavens, though where we might be found.
I want to talk about the song Sweet Girl. I'm gonna maybe get more Mike goes big picture and
Big
maybe
picture.
he gets deep and reads too much into things here.
I like that.
seems like you're trying to, I'm going to quote this line, I am not myself, I am everyone else. That's the refrain of the song. You get people to sing along live to this as a communal exercise, right? Seems like you're trying to slip some Buddhist philosophy in here. Yeah, and it's kind of this lyrical vibe. It's kind of echoed in some of your other songs, right? About not in the song "Painter," right? About not knowing who you are. I forgot who I was. I hear this kind of coming up in other songs, and here we have kind of the summation, kind of this Buddhist end state of realizing that there is no self. I am everyone, right?
Yeah.
Am I on the right track?
100%, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we've been calling it the motto for the record, like you know, the tagline, like I am not myself, I am everyone else. I feel like a lot of the music is inspired by that for this album.
Yeah.
You know, like with the songwriting process, like we didn't sit down with this album like we're gonna make a theme for this album,
Right.
but it kind of grew out of it. And that line came out of like so many different feelings, and that's why it's hard to say like what is this song about, or what did you think about when you wrote this song? Like I was thinking about so many things, and that line kind of just is the feeling of all of those things. But you know, we were talking about podcasts and social media stuff and all that. Like I realized one day I was like, I never make any decisions or like feel anything on my own. Like especially me personally, like everything is from influence from everybody else. Like all the influence from what everybody's doing all the time. Like I don't know if I was in a box with no access to anyone else in the world. It was just me. Like what would I want to do?
Right.
Who would I want to be? What would I want to eat? Like, you know, but everything is like, and I'm a sucker for people on Instagram. I'm FOMO about everything. I'm jealous about what you're doing right now. Whoever you listen, I'm jealous.
It's like, look at these people snowboarding.
Yeah, the way
There's an honesty to that, of accepting that.
Yeah, it's like something that I've worked out in myself. Not worked out, I'm working through it all the time, but like I am constantly influenced by everyone, and like everyone is. How can we not? Like we live in just like this crazy world now where you see what everyone's doing all the time, and it's like, how does that not impact what you're thinking about, what you want to do with your life, you know? And that's kind of like, what that's about.
I would just keep living life with life is like worth living. Cup of coffee in the morning, well, isn't it the middle of the day? And there's Jupiter and Saturn shining bright down through my window. And the grass is always greener, so I'll be running away. But when I am not myself, I am everyone else. I am not myself, I am everyone else.
I want to say one more thing about this song. The line at the end. The song kind of ends. There's a little quiet music, and then you sing, I'll be thinking about you all sitting down at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's a lovely sentiment to finish the song. And this song comes near the end of the record. And the way I kind of see it, that if there's any cynicism or ironic observation elsewhere on the record, it's kind of undercut here with this one simple line. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do believe that it's funny because whenever we sing that live, everyone's so pumped up from singing, and like I sing that line at the end, and like I think sometimes people hear it or in it they feel it.
Yes.
But I think sometimes like that line is just like the end line. But for me, like I do think that that's maybe one of the best lines I've ever written, and it is an honest line, you know.
I really hit me. I tell you, the whole record that to me revolves around that lyric.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that line. I do feel like I don't know where that came from, but that's a moment of honesty, and I feel like so much of the record is my personality, which is like sarcasm and like everything is fun and funny and like whatever, but like, you know, that is in my life all the time, and that is in our music all the time, and that line I think is like, hey, you know.
But it's still a risk to put that out there for you personally.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. No, I mean, we talk about it a lot at the show, like
it's like the clown's taking off his makeup. or something.
Being vulnerable. You know, that's what we're all learning how to do all the time, and we really appreciate it. That's another thing. Like audiences come and see us play, and in that moment, they become vulnerable. They're singing songs with us, and they're letting themselves loose. You know, and that's what we're trying to do. So, how can I ask you to do it if I'm not doing it myself?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I had a bunch of other stuff for you to talk about, but we've had such a great conversation, and we're near the end of our time. I think that's a really great place to finish up.
Right.
Kind of a good summary statement. But you're going to be out on the road. This episode is going to be coming out soon, I think. So if you want to blast any plans or anything you want to talk about,
follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram. Damn tall buildings.
we will make you jealous of our lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. You want FOMO?
Just let us know.
No, we'll be playing at Pete's Candy Store in Brooklyn, New York every Tuesday, except for Valentine's Day. We'll be playing the Monday prior for the month of February. We're also going to be on the road in the Northeast in 2 weeks. We're playing in Portland, Maine, and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And then we're going out to Wichita, Kansas.
Oh, wow.
We love Kansas.
Yes,
Can't wait to see you all out there. And we're playing like at this big convention center for...
In the summer, we'll find you out on the festival circuit.
Oh, yeah. Playing all over the place. Hopefully playing some shows at Buffalo Rose.
Yes.
Come on. If you're out there, book us.
That would be a dynamic double bill. I
Yeah,
agree with that.
sure. Super group at the end. Get out of here.
It's gonna happen.
All right. Avery, Max, Sasha, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a blast. Let's get back out there in those hallways and bump into people with guitars.
Yes.
All right?
Awesome. Thank you,
Thank
Mike.
you, man.
For having us.
Thanks, guys.
I am not myself. I am everyone else. And I'll be thinking about you all sitting down at the end of the day.